Hello and welcome to the new video. Today we're gonna take a look at the new Master League Premier Cup. Now it's finally available, so we're gonna take a look at some battles here. And today also we're going to battle Home/Henry in this video, so stay tuned for this. But we're gonna have a team here that's more of an anti-meta team. We're going to have the Magnezone in the lead, which is a Pokemon that I don't think I faced so far. We're going to have in the back the Saysop of the Feraligatr, which I also have not faced so far, and I did like 25 battles total today already. And we're also going to have the Golisopod here, which I faced a few times, but like also not that crazy much. So we're going to have a very anti-meta team for this meta, which is also always going to be a little bit more scary. It's easier to go for something meta, but this is still going to be an interesting team and a team that definitely worked out for me. So definitely a cool team to use. We're going to have here the Annihilape against us. It's going to be a team that can beat Annihilape pretty easily. We have a Saysop with Shadow Claw. We have a Pokemon in the back that can resist counter and has Shadow Claw and has super effective damage with the Aerial Ace, and this is basically what we wanted to do. I made a video earlier on, which might be a little bit unfair, where I used Annihilape as a Saysop as well, and so I kind of wanted to see if I can counter Annihilape Saysop, because I expected it to be most likely the most common Saysop in this meta anyway, with my Golisopod here, and it definitely worked out quite decently, sometimes at least. As we're gonna see here, we're going to have the Magnezone against the Gyarados now. Now we're going to be down to one Pokemon while the opponent has 3 Pokemon left. But do we really care? We're going to have a Golisopod here, and Golisopod does not care. Florge is coming back in. Liquidation is going to land straight away. Going to be able to take the knockout against the opponent's Florges, and now the Annihilape is gonna be the 3rd kill here for the Golisopod. Horrible lead for us. We're going to have a Skeledirge here. I decided to go for one fast move so we can use it later on maybe on our Magnezone. Swap out into our Feraligatr. And I have to say, for this cup, Feraligatr is lovely. Like, this Pokemon is so great to use. By the way, I made a little bit of a mistake in my top team video for this cup as well, where I suggested you to go for maybe even the Hisuian Everluck in the lead. If you would run Hisuian Everluck for this team in the lead as well, you would lose to the Magnezone. Magnezone would be a hard loss like this. You're going to have a good answer against Magnezone, and honestly we're going to see here the Florges a lot of times. Honestly, Florges was like quite common in this meta, which is understandable. We had some events with it. I actually never got a good Florges for the Master League yet, but it is what it is basically. I only have like ones with like 1 attack, which is kind of mad and doesn't really help me. But here we're going to see the matchup against the Skeledirge with our Feraligatr. We're sadly going to lose this one here, as the opponent can go for a Shadow Ball, but we still have our Golisopod in the back. And Golisopod was definitely the MVP for this team. It doesn't do too much damage, I have to say. I would like to see like a Shadow variant of this one, but it definitely is a great Pokemon to use. Here we're going to see the Everluck of the opponent, which means we're kind of forced to go for one charge move. We're going to build up to another Liquidation for later on against the Skeledirge, and we can go into our own Magnezone. Sadly, they're going to outspeed me. Are they running Icy Wind? Icy Wind is possible on the Everluck, but they're running the Avalanche, which is going to be great for us, which is going to allow us as well to go ahead, go for a high horsepower, do a massive amount of damage. We try to go for the full farm down. It's a double KO, but because we were able to restore Liquidation prior, we can go for this and actually still win this game. Next opponent, we're going to have a Magnezone in the lead. This is exactly kind of what you want to see with this team. Let's see what they're going to decide to do. They're going to decide to go into the Gyarados. What you kind of want to do is you kind of want to hit one Avalanche. You're going to be able to outspeed them here all the time because they had to swap into you, but they decide to use a shield, which is a little bit more annoying. And also what's a little bit more annoying, if you stay in like I do here, the opponent is going to put you into range where one Mirror Shot is going to be enough to knock you out. So what we're going to try to do here is we're going to go for another Avalanche, try to get the damage onto them, which didn't work, but we try to catch the move now. Onto our Feraligatr, it doesn't work either. They decide to go for the Crunch most likely now, which is going to do some decent damage. We don't gonna get the debuff, which is kind of nice for us, as the opponent tries to go for another charge move. It is going to be the Awkward Tail, and they swap back into their Magnezone. Was this a Spark variant of the Magnezone? It is actually a Spark variant, which is kind of worse for me here now, because the timing is a little bit worse for me to play around. But we're still going to have a decent chance here. Mirror Shot is not going to take the knockout, but they're going to get the attack drop, which might be a little bit annoying here, as now our charge move is not going to do as much damage, but still going to do enough damage we can try to swap out immediately into our Golisopod. In comes again the Gyarados. We try to reach our Aerial Ace in time, which we can do, but is it going to be enough to knock them out? It's going to be a very close game here. We cannot knock them out. They swap out, and they're going to have a Dragonite in the back. And I have to say, Dragonite is basically nowhere to be seen. Like, I barely see Dragonite. I think I saw like in 25 battles 2 Dragonites, and this was like the most popular Pokemon before for this meta. So it is kind of wild. It's all like around fairy type Pokemon, Annihilape, around, yeah, basically Gyarados the entire time. So it is an interesting meta. I did not really expect it to be this way, but let's move on to the next battle. Magnezone for sure was the most common lead that I saw today. Also the other team that I used, it was definitely something I encountered quite often. Primarina is also something that I found quite interesting. A lot of people opted to go for the Waterfall variant over the Charm variant. Definitely something to note as well if you build your teams. Waterfall Primarina is something that you can encounter quite often now, especially here in higher up meta, like higher up elo range here as well. So we're gonna see here the opponent going for another charge move. I did not really play this perfectly. Could have went for a charge move prior, which would have been better for me, because as you can see here, I am at 100 energy, so I decided to actually undercharge this. Because the fast move was barely doing any damage against me, I can go for the full farm down, and as you can see, because I did this, I can reach 2 liquidations against the opponent here as well, which is going to be great. Sadly, we don't get the debuff here, 30% chance I think, and now we're going to be able to get the debuff, which does not make any difference at all for us. It would have been so lovely to get the first one, because then we would have been able to force a shield, but they're running in the back here their own Gyarados. It is basically impossible to win this game at this point, but luckily they're running Waterfall, which is good for our Feraligatr. We resist this while we do neutral damage against them, as we can reach the Ice Beam here in time. This is going to do some very decent damage, I have to say. Like, Feraligatr was definitely a good Pokemon to use in this meta. Like, if you have a Hundo or whatever, definitely try to build it. Like, it's a cool Pokemon to use. I think the Shadow variant is most likely a little bit better, but it was a lot of fun. Like, Feraligatr did put in some work. It is quite decent for this meta. It's not good for the Open Master League. I tried out in the Open Master League before and it wasn't good at all. But here, we're going to be able to now let this move go through. It's going to be the Mirror Shot. It doesn't knock me out, and so I can actually reach another charge move eventually. But the opponent still gets another charge move here. It is going to be another Mirror Shot, of course, doing some super effective damage. Not enough to knock me out. And so we should be able to win this game here, right? Let's see. We can go for another Avalanche. Yeah, that's going to be able to knock them out, and we can move on to the next opponent. So, basically this team had one idea. We had basically the lead here of our Magnezone, which is going to be the best answer in order to beat like any of the flying type Pokemon. We have the Seiso over the Feraligatr, which is going to have Ice Beam. Also, we have 2 Shadow Claw users, of course, in order to counter those Annihilape, which is also the main theme of this team as well here. But I tried to really counter those flying types with my Feraligatr Seiso, and I barely was able to do this. Like, honestly, barely anyone actually tried to do this and like try to swap in their flying type against me. I never got a Dragonite onto me, which I said before already. It is like a very rare Pokemon apparently in this meta now, which does make sense. Quite a lot of fairy type Pokemon, fairy types definitely taking over here. But look at this, we're going to have the Pokemon that we want to kind of catch here. We're going to have the Annihilape, which is going to end up now against the Golisopod, exactly the matchup that we want. But they even have an Excadrill in the back, which we're going to take advantage of, as we can go for the Liquidation, force a shield, swap out, get the debuff, and a 1 more Avalanche is all it takes now to knock them out, which is lovely. Like, the Liquidation debuff can actually come in clutch quite often. It's not as good, of course, as a move like the Scald, but it's definitely a very solid move that the Golisopod has now, which is really great to see. We can see the opponent here being forced to go for another charge move. I'm gonna let this move go through, which in hindsight most likely was a little bit of an issue, or like a little bit of a trickier one, but never mind, because the opponent got the boost here. Like, a Shadow Ball would have knocked me out, otherwise it definitely does not knock me out at all. But we were able to call the bait, which is going to be great, because this should be basically the first Night Session they're going to get here, so there should be Energy Dry at this point. And so I should be able to just go for a back-to-back Aerial Ace to clean this game up. Fairly certain that the Liquidation would do a little bit more damage, but I wasn't too sure about it, so I just decided to go for the safe play, knock them out with the Aerial Ace, and move on to the next opponent. Magnezone against a Florges. This is something that I also kind of saw quite often during those battles here. We were seeing quite a lot of Florges in the lead, but usually because you have an ABB style line here, you kind of want to swap out eventually into your Feraligatr. I decided to let this move go through because it's my say swap, and like, I don't really care too much about like alignment. I just want to get out the Pokemon that we're weak to. But sadly, this team is struggling a little bit, at least, to beat the Gyarados. It is not like the worst Pokemon to beat as well, because you still have like kind of neutral damage. But Ice Beam doesn't do that much damage, Aerial Ace doesn't do that much damage, Shadow Claw doesn't do crazy amount of damage either. Your lead can actually go kind of toe-to-toe with it, but here, as you can see, the opponent was able to go for a defense drop against me, and so it's going to be a tough one to still win. I can get some damage onto him, and I was able to catch a move, most likely a Crunch, so I decided to let this move go through. It is going to be the Crunch, and so I can knock them out here, farm down the Gyarados as they swap back into the Florges. I know now for a fact at least that they are going to be at 0 energy as well after this one, so I'm going to be able to use a shield. And I would be able to catch the move, but I decided to go ahead and overfarm by a little bit more first. And I try to keep all my energy, because if they go into a Florges right now, they're most likely weak to me in the back. I was hoping for a Dragonite, so let's see, we're gonna try to catch the move here. We can catch the move from the opponent as they had 1 HP. They do quite a lot of damage here with the Disarming Voice, which is kind of good for us, because they have a Dragon type in the back. It's going to be a Goodra, and I actually did not know that Goodra goes up to over 4000 CP. That's massive, as we can reach for another Avalanche is enough to knock them out. It's super effective, it is stab, it does a ton of damage, but it's not going to do enough, and so sadly, they're going to be able to go for the awkward here. Goodra is a good Pokemon to use right now, but it's also going to get a community day this year most likely, so definitely stay away for that, or like definitely use some LilyNiRiain for it later on. Next opponent, we're going to have here the Gholdengo against us, which is a Pokemon we can easily beat with our backline, but we have some struggles with our lead if we don't have some energy for it. Here we got a CMP type, which is actually great for us because it's going to do a ton of damage if it would connect, but the opponent decides to use a shield. And here we go, finally we're gonna get out of flying type Pokemon against our Feraligatr, and we're gonna try to take advantage against this like basically immediately here, as we were able to reach a Hydro Cannon and also the Ice Beam. The Hydro Cannon is coming through now, going to get the shield from the opponent. I'm fairly certain I can still reach another one, and I will be able to do so with a 1 HP Feraligatr putting in the work here, knocking them out, and let's see, they're coming back with the Gholdengo, allowing us to go into our Golisopod. I decide to use a shield now because Shadow Ball, oh never mind, I actually decide to no shield here because actually the Magnezone with the shield advantage beats nearly everything in this meta anyway. And against Primarina, it's going to be a little bit of a tough one though. They're going to also run the wrong fast move for me, which is going to be a Waterfall, I think, again. I want to check this here as well before I swapped out. And so I decided to swap out now into my Magnezone. I can still outspeed them, I can still go for a high horsepower, and we can say goodbye to the Primarina as the opponent can now forfeit the battle. Second to last battle, which is going to be a Magnezone. Of course, the final battle is going to be against Homeslice Henry as well. Then we're going to have here the swap directly into the Golisopod. This is going to be most likely the worst Pokemon that I could imagine with this team, is to face actually your opponent's Golisopods, because your lead's gonna get completely hard-walled, like all the moves are going to be resisted. Your Pokemon in the safe position is going to get hard-walled, and so yeah, it is going to be a little bit of a trickier one to deal with, but of course our own Golisopod is actually going to be able to get a shield advantage here most likely, because we got some prior damage in, we would be able to align ourselves otherwise, and so I take the shield advantage, but of course they're going to be able to do some kind of okay damage against me here. It's not going to be too much, it's just a normal aerial ace. We are kind of not really taking too much damage from it, which is kind of nice. I kind of wanted to farm up to 2 charge moves so I can store 1 for when I have to swap out afterwards again. But yeah, we're going to be able to go up to 2 Hydro Cannons. Hopefully this was the right call. Let's find out here. We're going to be in a little bit of a tough spot. We only have like basically 1 Pokemon left at this point. It's going to be the Magnezone again here, as they decide to go ahead and go for the charge move here. Of course, it's going to be the Mirror Shot, trying to fish for the debuff, and they get the debuff immediately, but I go immediately for the high horsepower, not baiting, and this worked out perfectly, knocking them out, and they're going to have the Gyarados in the back. Can we still win this game though? It is going to be a tough one. It is definitely going to be a tough one, as the Avalanche is coming through. I can try to go ahead and go for another one in time, and the opponent did not throw the charge move for whatever reason. This is going to be able to get the shield from them, and so I can try to catch a move here, and it does work out as well. Everything works out after this one as well here, as I'm going to be able to take the awkward hit, and I can try to reach still the Ice Beam, knocking them out just barely here. Goodbye there, winning the game with 1 HP and a dream on the Feraligatr. Final battle against Homeslice Henry. Horrible lead for us, like Gyarados is really difficult for our backline to deal with, and for our lead as well. Like our lead is going to take super effective damage, of course, and the backline is going to not enjoy that either, because we cannot really deal with it as well. But they let the first move go through, which is lovely for me, because this is going to be definitely damage I take, and I try to catch the move, but they try to catch my move, and we're gonna be in a great matchup now. They did not expect the Feraligatr here, I think, as well, but the Skeledirge is gonna take super effective damage here from our Feraligatr, farming them down now as well. I can take a Shadow Ball, I don't really care too much about it. And if they go back into the Gyarados, it only has an awkward here stored, so it doesn't knock me out either. And I could go for a Hydro Cannon. They wouldn't seem Peter anyway, so then I went for an extra fast move here, doesn't matter at all. And I can go for the Hydro Cannon now, trying to knock them out. Don't think that they're going to use a shield on a nearly dead Pokemon here, and they won't. And so it depends on what they have in the back. It is going to be a Powdon, which is a very cool Pokemon. I don't have a Hippowdon for this league, sadly. I don't have a good IV variant of this one. But Weather Ball, as you're gonna see, is not doing any damage. Honestly, damage output of this thing, he said as well later on in like Discord DMs, damage output of this thing is not really good. So like if you want to build one, maybe just build on the one that is Shadow as well. Because I think there are quite a lot of matchups where Weather Ball would take a knockout here with like 2 Weather Balls if it was Shadow, but at this point they decide to just forfeit the battle. And so this is going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This team was a lot of fun to play, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow with a team that also worked out super well for me. So stay tuned for this, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.